It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.
The year, gentlemen. Last podcast of the year. So let's go around and introduce ourselves.
Hey, I am Chad Jetner.
I'm Peter Lawrence.
And I'm Kyle Bacher. And today we're going to recap the year we've had and what a year it's been. We've talked about a number of AI things and AI podcasts and all of that. We're going to not talk about AI. We're going to talk about all the other stuff.
Bet.
Yes. I'm sure there'll be plenty of AI podcasting next year. So we talked quite a bit about doing consulting, soft skills, working skills, special skills, teamwork, working on projects, some agile stuff, defining done, utilizing wisdom, stepping outside your comfort zone, what success looks like, how roles have changed in tech. So we did those kind of podcasts, some tech topics like dealing with other people's code, low code, DevOps, ANI patterns, staying in the pocket with tech, quantum computing with our physics encyclopedia, Dan Shui,
Nice.
Turning business data into business intelligence. I think Bennett joined us for that one. We took a moment to talk about overhyped tech, like two of this year's biggest things, Apple Vision and AI. I mentioned AI again. I'm sorry. I apologize. Special interests like board games, NFTs. We talked about special events around AWS, the reInvent pre-invent, which was one of my favorites. Getting ready to go to reInvent, even though we didn't go. But we also did some cool AWS topics like being a solution lead, automating tasks, well-architected review. And AWS made its way, I think, into a lot of our conversations. The real standouts for me, though, were the QA automation with Aquila and van life with and nomadic working with Justin Jordan, and talking about the pollinator with Jason Scherschlitt, his newsletter. I was like talking about the pollinator. So, gentlemen, I think it was a heck of a year. We had our 100th podcast.
No, I remember the one with Aquila because we were all sitting at a round table and in the same room, and that was quite the experience to podcast with that, everyone in the same space. It takes me back to our original podcast start, Kyle and I, with sitting around the broken, semi-broken microphone and recording it and trying to figure out how to do this thing.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting here with fancy microphones, fancy cameras, some of us sitting with boring cameras and boring microphones, and that's the way they like it, doggone it, and you're not going to change them. It's an amazing experience just to have come this far and to look at 2024 as not ending or not finishing or anything like that. But,
right.
Just that experience. And, we've had some amazing guests, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, some of our guests have basically done the entire podcast, and we're just there to go, yep.
What's that like?
Right.
How did that go?
Yeah. So that's been fun too. And we'll see them again and see more of them, right, next year.
And all of that, I'm in the office, and it's I can set aside the time work week to do this stuff. You guys, you're out there working for our customers and still making this happen. If you see Chad looking away, it's not that he's not paying attention. He is paying attention to his job as well as the podcast.
He's laser focused on the podcast.
One of the busiest men in show business, Chad Judner. We had some great guests, and I look back, I think we had some great podcasts. And what stands out for you?
I agree. I enjoyed the one with Aquila. We had two with Aquila, right? We had testing. We had a QA one. Her 5 levels of QA. I only knew of one of those levels. So that was transcendent. And quantum computing, I did not realize she was on the quantum computing one, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's right. That was fun because that was the one we did in person.
Right.
These work
so
much better. Think next year we should try to do more of those.
Yeah.
I those two were great. I enjoyed talking to Nick about Agile just last week or the week before, whenever that was.
Right. Yep.
it felt cathartic to hear somebody else have the same exact frustrations that I think, if I'm remembering right, like basically it was, you're not alone. Like, you're not on an island. Right. This is a common thing.
You're not imagining things, you're actually experiencing things.
Yes, my experiences are not unique to me. That's I guess that's the best way to put it. So all of those were great. I would love to have more talks like that in the future. More talks about how we do what we do, but like solutions, like, all right, I think the way I'm practicing Agile is, or inefficient, right? Is probably the best way to say it. What are some innovative ideas that we can come up with that are actually going to solve these problems for us? And
steps that we can take, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are real steps we can take? Or what are some transformational changes that we can suggest to our customers about these things, right? Like, we don't always have to look at somebody's published manifesto or published, practice and say, yes, no, that is exactly what we're going to do all of that prescriptively. Right. We have enough experience in our organization to be able to say, no, this entire concept is not great, and we're going to do. So I love to have more of those conversations, not just about Agile. I pick on Agile a lot, and I don't want to make any Agile aficionados mad at me or sad or whatever. But it is hard not to pick on it when you've had a perfect experience with a framework. Go to the opposite of that, right? Like, it's hard not to have this, the thrust just taken out of you. And
that is one of the downsides to consulting, right? Is that you are going to have the best experience, at least for a while, but you may not get it for your whole career, right? You might.
I think you're lucky if you don't have the perfect customer and project that just sings from start to finish.
Right.
And it's like you have that, and then it's a future of letdowns. But then you have the horrible one, and you make it through it and you deliver.
Right.
And in the end, it's awesome, but the road there is hard.
And I think when we're saying horrible, we're not saying like, down in the dungeons locked to a desk or anything like that. It's like relative to perfection, it was a horrible experience.
Right. Yeah. It had challenges. It had, oh, great. This thing we chose that built everything around, we've gotten far down this road, and this one bug is happening, and it's a fly in the ointment, stuff like that. But then a longer solutioning discussion, and like Chad was saying, around like specific things that we do, because we engage a lot of different ways and do a lot of different things and a lot of different ways of working. So I think we have a lot of good people that can help tell those stories.
I mean, that's the amazing thing, is all the smart people that we work with. Yeah, you look like you were about to go.
Well, I mean, and that's what I'm getting at too, right? Like, we've all, I mean, I'm on a project with another tech lead, and between the two of us, we have literally have a half century of experience doing what we're doing. But a lot of what we're doing is still pretty much like by the book. Oh, here's this thing. The book says to do it this way. It would be so wonderful if we could start writing the book ourselves, right? Instead of consistently reading somebody else's recipe for what worked for them. So yeah, I would love for us, in the future to have more of those conversations, right? Bring in Nick, bring in Jess. We've got a customer success.
Right.
Let's get her ideas on next year on her unique role. One, and then two, how we can actually do this, like how we as SDG can apply all our experiences in the past to absolutely like transformational new experiences for customers going forward, and push forward a brand that isn't just attached to like we're technologically we're smart, we're whip smart, we've got amazing DNA. We've got experience, we've got personality, we've got all this other stuff, and then we're also now innovating differently with ideas and run books and different frameworks for doing what we do.
I like
also, AI.
Let's like when there's something earth-shattering, piques our interest. I like to at some point talk about, once we get down the road a little bit, talking about kind of how our approach to learning AI, our learning community. I'd like to have that podcast in the future at some point. But even if it's something new and whatever, you just feel like it's being beaten to death because it's so big and so everywhere. And we're not going to talk about it today.
And you hear it everywhere. You don't just, I mean, there are tech topics that you hear about in your tech life. Home automation is one of those that you kind of hear more talking around the tech folks than you do talking around, wherever else you may find yourself talking to people. High school concerts or, something like that where you're, as a parent, you're going to and having a wonderful experience watching those things, but maybe talking to somebody else during or before or after. Some of these things just never come up. I mean, cryptocurrency was the AI of 2020, 2015.
Yeah, the hot topic, big thing.
I mean, we've talked about it. Chad, you've mentioned your Dogecoin and that experience and
yeah, it's a little different though, right? Like nobody's integrating Bitcoin or cryptocurrency into the tools that we use every single day, right? I mean, I guess to a degree, if you want to call that extra tab on Venmo integration, sure. But
talk about crypto miners.
Yeah, nobody's going nobody's going as nuts with crypto. I mean, they got pretty nuts. I think there's legal cases around how nuts it got. But I mean, I'm using AI tools daily now.
Right.
I use cryptocurrency as a toy. So
yeah,
my gripe with it, with how much it's discussed and everything else around it is like, all right, we've all the jokes have been told, all of the bits have been done. We already know that our future is going to include AI, and that eventually creativity and originality will just be algorithmically assumed, and we're going to come to this vanilla oatmeal culture that is boring and dead.
I look at it like a tool, like a creative collaboration more than just letting AI do all the lifting. I think we need to talk about my 30 jobs again. I'm kidding.
To see which ones were doable by AI now.
We did a whole thing. We did a whole podcast on it, and we're good. So Chad, you had some ideas of future podcasts that were great. I'm hoping Emily writes them down, or I'm going to go back and listen and write them down.
Yeah, I mean, we've had so much success this last year engaging people outside of the three of us.
Yes.
And I would just love to do that with everybody. I'd love to talk to Jana about, she sent a wonderful email about culture, right?
Yes.
I would love for her to come on and talk to us about, what makes our culture unique where we are. I would love to hear, I know one of our audience segments is people that we might potentially want to attract to be SDG consultants.
Right.
I would love to have some of our consulting managers come on and talk about how we handle that differently than other consultancies. Right. We do.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've done consulting before this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do here is unique and kind of special. So I would love to have them folks come on and talk about their role and their impact. And I would love to have, it was on the tip of my tongue. I just lost it. I'm so sorry.
Who else you looking for? You got a name? You got a face? You got a business unit? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I would love to talk to everybody that is a leader for our learning communities, right? About the community that they're leading. So we've got, in our organization, we've got a number of learning communities and we've got a number of leaders attached to them. And some of them are around technologies that have gotten kind of old and stale. So I'm a leader on our Java learning community. And that episode might not be the most exciting because it's Java. It was really cool 25 years ago. I still think it's cool. But there's not a whole lot of new, crazy, amazing Java projects to talk about. But
the ground's not being broken anymore.
Yeah. But we have a leader for our DevOps learning community. I'd love to pull him in and say, hey, tell us, because your world changes probably a lot more rapidly than my world does. Like
right now, yeah.
Yeah, I do some work with AI, and that's great. But the DevOps landscape always fascinates me, and all of the possibilities that we have to talk about there. I'd love to bring. We had Cooper and Ian on recently.
Yes,
right? I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah,
Cooper is probably one of the easiest people I know of to talk to about things that he's an expert on. It's wonderful to talk to that guy. Yeah. I'd love to have Cooper on all the time if he's. But I would imagine Cooper is going to be really busy.
Get him still time. look, we got to, what I've noticed is the more people that have a passion for the topic, the better the podcast is. The experience, the passion. So be more guest driven and drive the topics that way and do more in person would be wonderful. Maybe I can and set up a studio, some soundproofing.
I just had a wonderful.
Just have it I was going to say, just have it in your office, Kyle. There's lots of room in there and totally soundproofed.
Yeah.
Speaking of employee experience, I just had a Facebook memory come up from just 6 years ago, just before COVID, I guess. But I used to spend once a year, we'd get audited for ISO compliance. And I don't know if you've ever been through one of those ISO 27001 compliance checks. But it is horrible. And the auditors are usually not on board with your boyish charm and sharp wit and good looks, right? You can't just you can't just breeze through them. And then the day after, and everybody knew this was one time a year I hated, right? Because I just couldn't get, it was just bad. The day after, I'm going to show this up and I'll describe the picture. But everybody in the office bought me something, like literally everybody. So there's a case of Grain Belt. Somebody went out and got a bucket of fried chicken, Star Wars Legos, Star Wars Funko Pops, champagne, and a Darth Vader robe. And
cool.
We literally, it was a Friday, I think, if I'm remembering right. It was a Friday, and the entire office spent the rest of the day drinking champagne with KFC and and putting together Legos. I feel like we could have that same experience.
We just put the camera on us and drink champagne and build something with Legos.
Don't forget the KFC, though. The KFC.
Oh, yeah.
Bucket of chicken makes all the difference sometimes.
Yeah.
Once I learned that Uber Eats would deliver KFC, it was all over.
But that's a nice memory and fun, but also, made a great work experience out of how to correct a bad situation. The next day, have champagne and chicken, right?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the case here too, right? Like when we have, we have. This is supposed to be a retrospective, not a love story about working for STG. But the hell with it, we're going to make it that anyway. We have people dedicated to stuff like this, right? Like if I, recently, if I spend an entire weekend, another state, like doing weekend testing for a project, let's say, I'm sure that I'm going to come back and, it's going to be recognized and there's going to be some fun little whatever waiting for me. Nice. I'm sure that, we have people hyper-focused on the employee experience itself, recognizing people that are contributing more than 100% of their time. It's great. I love that we do it. I love how we do it. I would love if there was more fried chicken involved, honestly, Gianna, if you're listening. Fried chicken and champagne. That would be neat. But outside of that, this is the company I left and the company I work for now. Different shades of the same recognition, but all great. I love it.
We did talk about recognition a little bit too.
Yeah.
Last year we did. Yeah. And I try really hard to, depending on the role that you have on your team, you're a lead on whatever project you're on, I'm assuming, right, Peter?
Yep.
Part of my role isn't just guidance and, fleshing out requirements and technical solution architecture and everything else. It's mental health of your team is part of what we do.
100%.
So and that's another thing. STG does a wonderful job of facilitating us or enabling us to facilitate our own little recognition here and there when we can. So
and knowing your team well enough to recognize when they need recognition or mental health or all of those things, right? Or a bucket of chicken.
Yeah. A bucket of chicken. That should be, if we have a next year when we have an award, I don't want a nice shiny little glass statue. I want a big golden bucket of chicken, like a statue of chicken would be awesome.
Statue of chicken. All right.
I have made I've made trophies with food. Yes. Many layers of shellac. I made somebody an award one year because they had gone through a very difficult project. So gold spray paint, ketchup bottle, glue plate. I could do something with chicken. Definitely do something with chicken.
Add chicken.
We kind of talked through the different podcasts and kind of what we're looking for next year brings. Our hope for next year, some shifts to dive into some new areas a little deeper, a little more innovative, solution focused, a little more sharing of what the different roles in our company do. We've got a really strong partnership going with AWS and bringing we got a lot of people that are working hard, bringing their games up on that side of things. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stuff to talk about in that space going forward. And we got a lot of people involved in that. So I think that'll be some good topics out of there. Otherwise, I'm out of topics. I've been coming up with topics for 5 years.
5 years? Who's been doing the podcast for 5 years?
We did it internally starting in 2018.
Was it that long? Wow.
Yeah.
That's frightening.
We didn't get started till 29. No, started 27. Anyway, we did the internal one, and now we've been doing this since Chad started.
It is fun. And will continue to be fun.
Yeah, I hope I'll repeat it. I hope we can do this in person a little bit more next year. Probably a little easier when it's a little warmer out.
Always.
I'm assuming at some point it's going to get cold outside. I walked Otis in jorts this morning.
Yeah.
But I think these always work a lot better in person. If we're going to include guests, especially, I think the in-person stuff is just smoother. And then maybe a couple of special episodes we could do, where it's not 5 people talking over each other. It's Kyle talking to one person about one thing, right?
I've got one lined up.
Which one?
It's about the brain, digging into the brain. Bruno Barbosa has done many presentations about it. He's fascinated. I'm fascinated. I'm spacing the other person. Now I feel horrible. I figured we'd do that. Just wouldn't even need to be at the regular time. We would just schedule that between the 3 of us and do that one.
Maybe we can have Chad sit down with Jana one-on-one and have a nice podcast conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's...
I was actually legit thinking of exactly that.
Goal for 2024.
We should do that for sure.
We could do a 3-parter. Each of us go out and do a one-on-one, and then we publish it as a single 3-part.
That would be super fun.
Podcast.
Each one of us talking to Jana for 20 minutes. That, I think, would be interesting. Or any other guest.
I really do think, though, a one-on-one conversation with Jana could be great. I have enough of them anyway that aren't recorded, so...
as far as you know,
put one to tape and
make sure she knows it's about a podcast.
I tease. I'm not in Jenna's office every single week for official reasons. Yeah, what else happened in 2023 that's notable?
Outside of the podcast, one thing for me that's super notable is all the different medical advances that are taking place with CRISPR. There are some amazing, sickle cell was cured in a few folks with CRISPR, which I think is going to be an amazing coming down the pipe. Or
see those little nanobots.
Well, things? It's not quite nanobots. It's more
CRISPR is brings fixes DNA. Fill a spot. If you have a hereditary thing that's in your DNA, it can go in.
It is a template that goes after a certain chunk of DNA, cuts it out and replaces it with what it wants. And it just sounds like there's going to be some amazing cures for some of these things that are challenge right now.
That's good, because I got this thing going on. Get this thing that hurts when it rains.
I don't think we're quite to regenerative medicine or anything like that, but some of the autoimmune disorder stuff that's going on is going to be amazing too, I think, coming up.
I think the medical strides, even personally at our house, my daughter's had multiple open heart surgeries, and she's got enough stents inside of her right now where she should probably be tripping off metal detectors. I asked recently, and I think we're up to 11 or 12 stents.
Wow.
But process by which those get placed went from even a decade ago. I'm trying to think here. We got her in 2008. When were the Olympics in Beijing? That was 2008, right? We got her right after the Beijing Olympics.
Okay.
I remember because I was in Beijing right after the Olympics, and everybody looked at me and thought athlete, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
they were wondering how you got Grainveld into China, but
they were like, I hope he's not, I hope I'm not going to compete against that guy.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
Sing Tao, that was my grain belt in China. But yeah, I think she had been having these surgeries for so long, and now it's a same day procedure. When she gets a stent put in, they go in through an artery in her leg.
Yep.
It's all microsurgery. It's all microscopic, and she can be up and about that same night. Last time she did it, I remember the first time she did it, she was out for, she was probably a 3-day stay in the hospital. The last time she did it, I think we went to see a movie that same day at the end of the, after she literally had kind of you don't really consider that heart surgery. They're just opening up or pinching off a vein, but it's
a serious medical procedure that you want to see success with, right?
Yeah. And she's like, Dad, I'm bored. Let's go do something. I'm like, I get the sniffles and I'm down for the count. So yeah, medical advances, that one specifically for us, directly affects us, directly affected my family. And it's every couple of years when she goes in, they're saying, hey, this is on the horizon. This is on the horizon. This procedure is doing this for people with this condition. And it's unbelievable. And I've heard that this is going to break one of our rules here. I've heard that the advances in AI are going to help further what's possible with, specifically pediatric cardiology, which is the area that we care about the most. Yep. That I care about the most, right? Because it directly affects my favorite at-home waitress. So,
you're right. The leaps and bounds that have been made and are continuing to be made with all of these fields, especially with some of the different companies just in Minnesota, the Medtronics and the Boston Scientific, and all of those are just and in manufacturing, 3D printing and things like that they can get accurate down to thousandths of an inch and that kind of technology that makes other things possible. It's just a great time to be alive, and yet I'm sure people have been saying that for the last 200 years.
Yeah, well, I think that we're at a point where all this innovation happening so fast has kind of knocked us off our feet a little bit. Additional uncertainty, and I think that's happened across the getting our feet back under us and learning how to the good tools emerge with the bad tools. The good tools stay, hopefully. Hopefully it's not another VHS situation. Betamax was better. So,
DVD.
Do you see that? Do you see that?
AI, right? Like when AI, I was cynical. I think Open AI and ChatGPT became a household name right around this time last year, right?
Right.
And initially, it's a really cool chatbot, right? And then you're like, oh God, this is actually really cool. And then people start inventing nonsense words like prompt engineering. Like, cool, that's not a thing. Just you're prompting
I'm
it
more
for
of a
different things.
promptsman. I can consider myself a promptsman.
I guess. Yeah. It's just when Google came out, we're not search engineers. We're just asking questions, right? Anyway, so initially, I was a little saying, okay, all right, it's a really cool chatbot. And then you look at the underpinnings of it and you're like, oh my God, this is actually kind of cool. And then all the different applications. And the one I heard about last night that is amazing is combination of AI, specifically the image recognition part of some of these machine learning models with the advances in cameras, is going to make it so it's literally going to extend our lives, because early detection of, you go in to get image.
Everything.
AI is going to be able to not necessarily flag, not necessarily say, oh, this guy's going to have, this in a few years, but it'll flag anomalies and say, hey, follow this, highlight things for a doctor that a doctor might miss if he sees 100 cases a week, right?
There's
so many of these.
There's a lot of tells that you have to know about. Lyme disease, learning that, there's a big circle you have to look for.
So the combination of those two technologies is it's going to be one of those things where it literally it's literally going to extend our lives. And bonus, maybe there's going to be fewer lawyers in the future, right? Because
Yeah.
turns out you can describe a legal case to a legal problem to AI, and it can pass the bar. It can do a lot of the documentation that you would pay a lawyer to do, and it can do it just as well. I think that was the case. They did that case in Houston where what happened? The lawyer got busted for using AI, but he got busted for a stupid reason. Like he had it open or something in the courtroom, and it's not that. And they weren't really like, it was more of an ethics thing, if I remember it right, because the judge is like, I mean, you're still charging your client, you're doing blah, blah, blah. That's an ethics slap on the wrist. The legal outcomes of, the output of the AI was solid.
Actually, not using AI might be the ethical problem because you're not speeding up your time to figure things out and saving the customer billable hours.
That's an interesting take on it. Like by not using AI, you're doing the handcrafted. I mean, how many houses are built with a hammer and nails anymore, right?
Versus
it's
nail
guns and everything else.
Yeah,
and if you're a consultant.
Yeah.
It comes back to the question then, like we asked Cooper this just recently. What are you doing with all the free time that these new tools have given you, right? Like
more work.
We haven't freed ourselves from work. We're just doing more now. A little bit at a time. And I think the utopia, like the Star Trek utopia is, the 4-hour workday or whatever. 4-hour workdays a week is but financially catastrophic for a company such as
the model would break down.
The core business needs, the core work, I think will still be happening for a very long time, but with assistance and better tools, and will happen faster as we learn kind of how to incorporate these. Already happening with GitHub. People are running that and seeing benefit from that. I get a lot of benefit from ChatGPT. Learning AI has been a real. I've been trying to dig deep into some things, and that's been a challenge. We're not going to talk about AI.
Told you we were going to talk about AI.
I just I'm looking for it because it's. It seems like every year, like we gain knowledge, we learn things grow and change, and skill sets improve. People get more experience.
Looking at the math my kids have to do in high school is like, whoa, I don't remember that. That's all additive.
That's my struggle, is keeping up, because I cut across a lot of different technologies and things I need to do. And, it's a scramble. But AI is there. So the time it took me to install the thing I was working with was much shorter because I was just getting quick answers for the bugs that happened.
You had an experienced person that you could ask questions to, which happened to be an AI.
I didn't want to bug Bennett all the time about Python and stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening in the data space, and having some more discussions about data. I can see that.
When are we going to run out of storage?
Holographic storage is going to fix that. We'll be fine.
So much storage on such a small thing. Having petabytes of storage on your Apple Watch.
Oh, here's a thing that surprised me this last year, and I think this has been around for a while, and I just don't. My truck is a decade old now, so like I'm not really up on new automotive technology. But when I took my daughter, my home waitress, to Cape Canaveral last weekend.
Yeah.
And whenever I go places, like I drive an old truck at home, so I drive neat things out and about. And I rented this BMW SUV that had the thing that makes you stay in your lane. Like you got to really kind of crank lane the wheel to get out of your lane. I was amazed at how good that was there. Even there was a night we were there, it was foggy. There were some roads that weren't clearly marked. Like that technology is kind of amazing. I'm still positive we're decades away from self-driving cars.
100%.
But this lane assisted thing is probably another lifesaver, right? Like I would imagine that this is going to be, between the lane assist and the brake assist and all the other assistance the car gave me, it's going to be harder and harder, almost impossible to get into an accident because of, if you have all the technology available to you. I think it's going to be hard to get really difficult to get into an accident. I was amazed by it.
It seems like that's a slow way of transitioning into self-driving cars as your current car becomes more and more self-driving, keeps you in the right lane, keeps you from hitting things.
But that's level 2.
This is so it was so a fun story. I was driving. I'm like, man, I'm trying to change lanes, and it just like it fights you, right? And
it's the whole way over.
You could do it one-handed, but you almost have to use 2 hands to move over the lane. I realized
you put your signal on.
If I put my signal on, it knows, and it won't actually prevent me from doing it.
That is brilliant.
So something about getting into a BMW just makes me forget to use my turn signal in a lot of
things. That's brilliant.
But so all of those technologies are level 2. There are 5 levels being talked about by the people that talk about, cruise control is level 1. It keeps your speed, no matter what, that kind of thing. Adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, all of those features are level 2. And even Tesla's self-driving is still being talked about as level 2 because it's still got problems if it's dark and foggy, it blah, 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 all those things, right?
Yeah. Snow, but it still can't handle snow.
Snow is going to be the biggest hurdle for that.
Everything is getting better. And imagine a GPS that could track you to a foot and know that you're not going to go off the road because you know where the road is because the maps are so good and the GPS is so good that even though you can't see it, it's there.
I got to make sure, maybe I should Google this afterwards, but GPS is already that good. Yeah. It's a government regulation that makes it like they can only be accurate to within 20 feet. And this is a national security thing, not
it used to be like,
that's correct.
I think it used to be a wider area. I think it
used to be 100 feet. Now it's down to about 10 meters or something like that. But that's government controlled. Yes. The military can get you down to not quite the period on the page, but
yeah.
I think, the AI advances in the medical field, the advances in automotive and like transportation alone. Dude, we're going to live forever. I'm going to live forever. I think, if everybody gets on board with this technology, and even like the silly little, Uber and Lyft, right? I would love to see, I'm sure somebody's done a study on what that's done for fatalities from drunk drivers, right? I'm sure that's probably cratered. And then even if you do make the horrible mistake of having too many and getting in your car, if you have driver assist, probably going to get home. Odds of getting home safer are higher. And it's going to break for you when you probably nod off and fall asleep.
Not enough to change the laws, and it doesn't mean you should do it.
Not enough to change the laws. It doesn't mean you should do it. Absolutely do not ever do it. But as far as, when it comes to technology that changes your life, this is it. It's actually there, and it's a
life-saving. Yeah.
Weird to be able to actually point at things that we work with every day and recognize it, right? Like machine learning models and all of the math and science that go into building the AIs that we talk about incessantly. All of that stuff genuinely has real world impacts. For me, to the little girl that's, not so little anymore. She's whatever, it's kind of wonderful to see.
So we're not going to talk about AI, but Chad, you've come quite a ways around on AI because you kind of hammered it early in the year when we first started talking about it. You were real skeptical and didn't think it was going to change anything.
As old people, we've seen a lot of technology come and a lot of snake oil.
Exactly.
Brought around and gone out.
I think Bitcoin. Though you were right to an extent.
Say that really quick. You just repeat.
You were right, Chad. You were right.
Was right.
You were right to an extent.
The initial, the first wave of everything that comes along for the ride with this stuff, is almost always silly, right?
100%.
Things like Copilot. I'm a huge fan of JetBrains and all of their tools. So their AI integration with their tool set is actually legitimately kind of great.
Is JetBrains, is that IntelliSense?
IntelliJ. IntelliSense is a mouse, I think.
Microsoft.
No, that's true. That's the Microsoft thing. No, IntelliJ and everything else. It's pretty awesome. Buddy, go upstairs, man.
Intellivision. Is it the same? With the buttons, more buttons.
But again, I'm seeing in real time something that, I doubt, I could be wrong. The JetBrains folks probably weren't thinking about AI to this extent in November of 2022. But they went from not thinking about it at all, and maybe I'm kind of making up a story, I'm assuming, to we've actually got a really cool integration with our tools, and I've used it, and it's I don't know if you've used it with yours yet, Peter, but
oh yeah,
like I literally like highlight a block of code and say suggest refactoring, and it's like I'd probably do it this way, this way, this way. You're right, and so it's kind of neat, and it's like it's already a production ready, useful tool that just manifested itself in the span of what, a year?
Yeah, crazy,
kind of ridiculous. Really kind of curious to see what we're talking about at this point next year.
Yeah.
Not that I think we're ever going to be out of work, but I think massive slices of our job is going to transform.
Yeah.
No, we're going to be doing Cooper, and we're going to just imagine the software that we're going to be writing and
It's insane.
the amazing things that we'll be doing.
I think my last word on things is that we had a really good year of podcasting, and I think we're going to have another even better year of podcasting ahead. I'm looking forward to all of those topics and guests, and like you're saying, trying to do more in person, things like that. So my year in the review next year, it's all good. Chad?
My year in review, I mean, I've always enjoyed the episodes where we have, where we can, other consultants speak more than anything. So Cooper and Nick, I'm trying to think.
Akila.
Think of other people that we have to thank. Akila,
Bennett,
Cooper, Nick, Bennett, Ian, Jason Scherschlicht.
Yes.
Everybody else. I think what we could focus on next year is, I mean, almost every other podcast features somebody about something, and
then the other ones will be about AI. It'll be perfect.
The other ones will probably be about AI. And I'm just saying, like, let highlight more voices at SDG instead of just three of us would be awesome.
Yeah. I think with that we can shut her down, and
looking forward to 2024.
Thanks y'all for having a great year. We'll see you on the podcast next year. That's it.
Say goodbye, everybody.
Say goodbye. Goodbye.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Let me click.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.